I noticed a huge gap between interest and understanding of the history among young people as well in the general population. So one of the goals and the idea of this project was to bring the competences in the field of historic civic education to the youth workers, and at the same time to sensibilize the historians for the methods of the youth work.
History repeats itself because we don't remember it. So I think it's important to remember it. Otherwise we say, oh, how could this happen? It's like, really? This happened like 10 times before in similar occasions. Like, why the hell are you so surprised? And we should stop repeating the same mistakes. So I think we should have these memorials as reminders. Look, don't do that anymore. I think that's why it's important.
I think that every venue is important because they just show every side of the story. The story has always gonna have like two sides or even more, and it's important to remember each side, its testimony, because they show like a different point of view, and that's how you can reconstruct story and make your own idea. So I think it is always important just go abroad, see what happens, see what different people think, so you can really get to understand an identity and even a whole country.
Well, first of all, not in every post-dictatorship or, let's say, country which experiences some political violence, political atrocities or wars and so on, those victims actually found justice. So I think at least to commemorate these places is one of the ways to build justice.
If we think about the past, and if we think about when radicalism was really a problem and it had very big and bad consequences, and if we know this, then we can help prevent it.
Yeah, I think that all these venues are just a reminder of first of all what happened, and then like what humans are capable of, and how ideologies and different like political ideas really shape events that might end tragic and horrible and really violent for some people.
Well, I think it's important to not be very Eurocentric. In my case, for example, I come from Portugal, and I learned a lot about Germany, about Spain and Portugal, about the discoveries, and also about the Holocaust. But I learned 3 sentences about Yugoslavia, about Serbian genocide, and that was it.
In my view, I have always thought that the best mark of a war for an entire country are their own people. So that's why I think it's very important not only to keep monuments, but also listen to the people, their past, what they have been through.
I think that in Europe of today we have a big problem that can be summarized by that we are always preparing for the future, and we are not really sure what the future is going to be. And yet we are never preparing for the past, and the past is there to be known and is there to be unraveled by the historians. Yet at the same time, not that many people do prepare for the past, and instead they just prepare for some myth of their nation being the victims, their nation being the heroes, and the other nation being the perpetrators every single time. Yet again, then when you look at the perpetrators, it many times happens that the perpetrators have once been the victims, or even the perpetrators themselves, even during committing these crimes, are themselves victims.
In my perspective, the country doesn't matter that much. We are currently traveling with more than 12 nationalities in our group, and whatever place we visit, might it be Vukovar as a victim of the civil war, might it be Jasenovac as the old concentration camp, or the prisoner island of Goli, we always have parallels with the countries we come from, with the countries we know. And I think it's more the human experience, the human history in these places that can tell us about today, about our future, what we want to do. And whether it is in Croatia or in Estonia or in Germany, I think the meaning is often the same.
I mean, I think our own past is part of our identity. For example, even if I wasn't alive during the Spanish Civil War, I have the testimony from my grandmother, and that marked me in a way. So, as it has become part of my identity, I also need to take it into account to build my own future. So, I think that to deal with our own past in Guernica, we really need to go abroad, see what happened in different countries regarding war, how different narratives existed, and how these people cope with all of that, so we can learn a little bit from them and we can just look forward to the future for ourselves.
During these 2 weeks we got to speak a lot about identity, and if we speak about identity, then it comes to my mind that sometimes we refer to ourselves as students, as workers, as supporters of certain parties, but behind all these identities there is an institution. As the students, there is the institution of university; as workers, there is the factory; as the voters of a certain party, we see this party behind this. There are always some institutions. And I have a problem with this because in the case of Yugoslavia, as we could see that there was this Yugoslav identity and everyone was told to identify as a Yugoslav, and nobody was free to identify as a Croat, identify as a proud Serb, identify as a proud Slovene. Yet with the European Union and the European institutions nowadays, if we dissolve, is the European identity going to be left or not?
It really helps people to have an identity, but in the sense of hostility between different nations and nationality, it becomes really dangerous, and it's still today the hostility between different nationalities is really visible, and that's when nationalism becomes toxic, and I really feel like that shouldn't happen like all over Europe, and there needs to be some modesty in how your national identity is framed.
How venues shouldn't be facilitated? Well, I'll speak in an affirmative way. The venues should communicate the narrative based on scientific historian surveys. The venues should try to avoid blaming the whole groups, especially ethnic or religious groups, for crimes and atrocities committed by individuals or smaller social groups.
My personal view how it shouldn't be done is to manipulate people, so just present one way of looking at history. So I don't know, we were the victims and those were the bad guys. No, I think what it should necessarily be done everywhere is to have at least a balance, or at least for the guy to say, you know what, I know this is a passionate topic for me because my grandparents were involved in this and that's why I speak like this, but you should also keep in mind that this is my personal view. That's something like that. We should address the fact that there's not just one side present there.
As I'm quite familiar with the German culture of remembrance, for me it was always like the role model for the way of dealing with the past, because I think it doesn't have many similarities in other European countries, but I'm not sure if you can transfer
form this or transmit this attitude to its own like a dark past also to other countries. It needs a time, it needs also a change of generations, and it's nothing what we can also like force other countries to do. So we cannot expect from Croatia, which suffered like only 30 years ago or even less war. I think you just need time for the reconciliation.
I don't think there is one proper way to deal with those venues. I think it's very subjective. I saw it a lot of times, the museums I liked, others didn't like, and vice versa. So for me, the biggest insight was that a lot of these places are forgetting about meta-learning, how we learn, so to present us things in an exciting way, in an engaging way, so we actually want to know more about it. And they think that because this was a concentration camp, we not have some engaging, presentation, but I think we should, because it's important to learn about it. So we should not forget learning how to learn.
Venues should also not emotionally overrule the visitors without explanation. So from my point of view, the venues of victims should be rather places of reconciliation and promotion of peace culture, and not the places that are going to represent some symbolic capital or symbolic value for further wars or ideologically motivated purges.
The importance shows itself in three ways. Having the place what it was, so the history, I don't want to say facts, but what has happened in this place, to get to know it, to understand what you can't always do from a textbook or from a film shot of the place, but you have to be there to understand it really, I think. And then you have the feel of what is being made of it today, and looking at the places, how they are recognized or not. For example, if you look at the island of Goliotok, that is barren, you could say, no buildings left, no real traces left. You could also transform that into today's society, perhaps, that this place isn't present. That is the second importance, and the third is, I think, what is going to be made of it.
Mm-hmm. I think a very moving moment for all of us was the women's court, because there for the first time we got to hear very personal testimonies in person, not from some videotape. And at the same time, for me, it was really moving to see that the nationality of those women didn't play any role. They came together and they understood we all have the same trauma, we all had similar experiences, we all suffered. It doesn't matter whether you're Serb, Croatian, Bosnian, we all have the same struggle to deal with the past.
I think the most discussed topic from my point of view, or with me, was about Tito, and the fact that some people do not know who he was, and was really, how do you not know who he was? He was such a great or big figure in history, and you don't learn about it, and you're from Europe. So for me, it's this was the most kind of intensive and also very eye-opening encounters, that my history is not necessarily their history.
State socialism, I think, was one of the things that we discussed the most about, because when I was in Tito's Island, I thought it was impossible to have such a museum, because you looked at it and it was as Tito was the best ruler in the world. But it's impossible to forget that it was an authoritarian regime, and that, well, tomorrow we are going to see Goliotok, and there was no freedom of speech. People who opposed his opinions and who speak about it would end up in prison, and all of their rights would be thrown away. I think it's very important to recognize that maybe they had stable economy and they had social security, but freedom of speech is a human right, and I think it has to be valued as such.
And it was quite challenging to just say, okay, we can't just pick one side, we need to construct our own idea of what happened here, but it also made us think, okay, who's telling the truth, who's not? Why is it presented in some way, for example, in history books in Spain, and then it is presented in another way in the history books of other countries? But I find that especially enriching, to have the different insights.
But I think that the program itself was really well done because it was a very nice atmosphere, and they always managed to balance very well the workshops with the theoretical part and also with free time, so that we could reflect on our own about what we were dealing with.
There are 65 people. They are from different educational backgrounds, they are from different age groups. I think that it wasn't a challenge for me as a participant, it was a big challenge for the organizers to put people that are like Martin Jevnek, an expert in or like an expert, as he likes to say, into Yugoslav history, and then person that has never heard about Yugoslavia. And the organizers actually made it work, and they made it work in order to give something to even such professionals as Martin is, and to people like someone that is hearing about Croatia for the very first time.
For me, it was a great moment when the participants from other countries started to recognize the similarities and speak about similarities that they learned about during the summer camp, and pointed out some events or structures in their history or cultural remembrance as interesting and surprising parallels.
I really did not expect to have so much contact, not only with the places of memory, these memorials, but also with the people, with the witnesses. So I feel that it really enriches me and my own perception about this period of history and about the work with historical memory.
Well, at first, 2 weeks with 60 people traveling around was freaky because so many people around me, and I also need my free space. But now that it's coming to an end, I really wish we had 1 week more, because the people here are amazing. They're really interested in history. They really want to know, they really want to learn. And this is really we combine our passions together, so it sparks my passion as well.
I'm actually positively surprised how many visits we do and how many tours we have and how many talks we have and how many different people we meet, because I feel like we really get a really diverse view on the past and the present, and so really different perspectives and really different people.
I think there has been a lot of intercultural exchanges. We all come from very different backgrounds, as well political as also economic. And it's very well to see how we all fit together and how we are all getting along very well, and how we exchange our histories and also our views on the world, because we all have very different perspectives.
I see that group is growing together. I see their enthusiasm about the project, participation in the intensive program. And for me, this is the best confirmation that we created a great program. And this program wouldn't be possible without enthusiasm and support of all our participants.
Those venues show us what we should be aware of now in the present. Look at the past. Look, we took this way and this is where it led us. Maybe just keep in mind that if we take the similar way, it might quite possibly lead us in a similar direction. So maybe, learn from history to adapt the present and actually better the future.